Have you ever woken up from a deep slumber feeling groggy and disoriented? You try to call out to your partner or pet, but the sounds that leave your mouth are indecipherable. Even worse, when they respond, you have no idea what they're saying. Imagine if this happened and the sounds coming from your mouth were not only unintelligible to those around you, but to yourself as well. How would you react? Would you panic or remain calm and collected? Could you carry on a conversation with a person who didn't know your language, relying on body language and gestures to get your point across? Well, this strange situation is not just a figment of your imagination. It actually happened to a man identified only as John in North Carolina in the 1980s, and nobody could understand what he was saying, not even John himself. What on earth was going on here? Welcome back, everyone. Here today we'll discuss the bizarre case of a man who woke up speaking a language nobody understood, not even he himself. If you want to find out what really happened to John, stay with me till the end of the video. One morning, John awoke in his bed feeling quite unwell. He recalled having slept restlessly throughout the night, frequently changing positions and occasionally mumbling to himself. John struggled to recollect his dreams, though he felt as though they had been significant. Unfazed, he got out of bed, intending to go about his daily routine. However, things didn't quite go according to plan. As John attempted to speak to his wife, he realized that the words coming out of his mouth did not match those he intended to say. To his horror, he found himself speaking a language he didn't recognize. At first, his wife was taken aback by what she was hearing. She could tell that her husband was trying to communicate with her, but the sounds coming out of his mouth made no sense to her. It sounded like he was speaking some sort of foreign language, but she couldn't place it. Startled, she asked him to repeat what he had said, hoping to hear something more familiar. But each time he tried to repeat himself, the same jumble of unrecognizable words came out. John was equally perplexed by what was happening. He tried to ask his wife to call the doctor, but the only sound that emerged was a garbled mess. Terrified of what was happening to him, John started writing down the words he was trying to say, hoping to figure out what language it was. He found it wasn't a language he recognized, but it wasn't a random collection of sounds either. It had structure and rhythm, almost as if there was a method to its madness. As minutes passed, it became clear that John wasn't simply mumbling or having a stroke. He was articulating his words perfectly. The problem wasn't his pronunciation, but rather the words themselves. Realizing the gravity of the situation, John's wife immediately called for medical assistance. When paramedics arrived at their house, they were baffled by what they heard. They conducted various tests to determine whether John had suffered a stroke or brain injury, but everything came back negative. It was as though nothing was wrong with him, yet he couldn't speak a single word of English. By now, news of John's strange ailment had spread through the small town and reached the ears of local doctors and scientists. Puzzled by the situation, they went to see John in hopes of figuring out what was going on. Upon meeting John, they were astonished to find that not only could he not speak English, but he had no idea how to sign either. He appeared completely lost, unable to communicate or understand anyone around him. Although he couldn't speak, John was able to write down several sentences, and the doctors noticed that the words he wrote were coherent and grammatically correct. This observation sparked the interest of linguists who began to examine the transcripts of John's conversations. They scrutinized every word he uttered, trying to find similarities to known languages or patterns that could shed light on the mystery. Days turned into weeks, yet no one could decipher the language John was speaking. It sounded as if he were reciting ancient poetry, but it bore no resemblance to any known language, dead or alive. In the meantime, neurologists offered their services to investigate John's condition. They performed numerous tests and scans, hoping to discover something that could explain his predicament. All signs pointed towards normal brain function, leaving doctors baffled. Was John suffering from a rare form of aphasia, a condition that affects one's ability to communicate due to brain injury? But if so, why did his scans appear normal? As days turned into weeks, John's family grew increasingly concerned. Not only was he unable to communicate with anyone, but he was also losing weight and becoming weaker. They pleaded with the doctors to do more, to find an answer, but the truth was that no one had any idea what was happening to him. Finally, a team of researchers stepped in to help solve the mystery. They observed John closely, recording everything he said and noting any patterns they could find. They studied his writings and scanned his brain in detail, searching for any abnormalities. After spending countless hours poring over their findings, they concluded that there was nothing wrong with John's brain. All tests, scans, and observations indicated that he was perfectly healthy. The only thing that was abnormal was the language he was speaking, which didn't resemble any known language, past or present. There was also no evidence of brain injury or any other physical ailment. The team of researchers was perplexed and unable to offer an explanation for John's condition. They had never seen anything like it before. While the mystery deepened, people from all over came to witness John's strange behavior firsthand. Many were amazed by what they saw and heard, while others dismissed it as a hoax. Some even claimed that John was making it all up for attention, but the doctors vehemently denied this. They knew that John was a simple man who wouldn't concoct such a complex scenario for notoriety. And finally, after months of struggling to communicate using an unknown language, John began to recover. The strange tongue that had replaced his native language slowly faded away, leaving him once again able to speak and understand English. Everyone was astounded by this sudden turn of events. What had caused John's ailment in the first place? Why had it lasted so long? And why did he suddenly recover without any medical intervention? These questions plagued the minds of doctors and researchers alike. Unfortunately, no one could come up with any solid answers. John's case baffled the medical community, and the mystery only deepened as time went on. Despite regaining his ability to speak English, John had no recollection of the previous months. It was as if the entire experience had been a dream, vivid and real, yet ultimately meaningless. Looking back on the ordeal, John's wife still wonders what really happened to her husband. Was it a rare neurological phenomenon or something more mystical? To this day, the doctors are also unsure what exactly took place during those difficult months. They had witnessed an extraordinary case that defied explanation. They had seen John struggle to communicate in a language that defied translation, yet they had no answers. Well, folks, that wraps up today's video. What do you think happened to John? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to share this video with your friends and family if you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.